Welcome, my amazing friends. Today, I have brought you an incredible story that will touch your heart, inspire your soul, and leave you with life-changing lessons about courage, determination, and the power of never giving up. This is the journey of a man who was much more than an actor. He was much more than a comedian. He became a symbol of hope for millions of people across the world. His name is written forever in the golden pages of cinema history. He made people laugh during the darkest moments of their lives, while secretly carrying unbearable pain inside his own heart. His name was Sir Charles Spencer Chaplin, but the entire world remembers him as Charlie Chaplin, even today. Decades after his passing, very few artists can match his influence. His films are timeless. His comedy speaks every language, and his life continues to inspire people of every generation. His story proves that no matter how difficult life becomes, success belongs to those who refuse to surrender. So, watch this story until the very end, because it will not only improve your English listening skills, but also fill you with motivation that could change your life forever. Now, let's begin. Charlie Chaplin entered this world on April 16, 1889, in the busy streets of London, England. His parents, Hannah Chaplin and Charles Chaplin Sr., were performers who worked in music halls and theaters. They entertained audiences with songs and stage performances, hoping to build a better future through their talent. But destiny had written a completely different story for little Charlie. His father struggled with alcoholism and slowly destroyed both his career and his family. Before Charlie was old enough to understand the meaning of life, his father abandoned them. His mother was left alone to raise Charlie and his older half-brother, Sidney. From that moment, their lives became a daily battle for survival. Poverty surrounded them from every direction. Some days there was no bread in the house. Many nights the children went to sleep with empty stomachs. Sometimes Hannah pretended she had already eaten, so her sons could have the little food that remained. The family kept moving from one tiny room to another because they could barely afford the rent. Every knock on the door brought fear that they might be thrown onto the streets. Yet even in such painful circumstances, Charlie never lost the innocent smile of a child. His mother was gifted with a beautiful singing voice and dreamed of becoming a successful stage performer. Charlie loved watching her perform. Whenever he stood behind the theater curtains, he imagined himself standing under those bright lights one day, making people smile. But fate struck once again. One evening, while Hannah was performing on stage, her voice suddenly failed. She tried to continue singing, but no sound came out. The audience became impatient. People started shouting, laughing, and throwing objects toward the stage. It was a heartbreaking moment. Then something extraordinary happened. A tiny, 5-year-old boy walked confidently onto the stage. That little boy was Charlie. Without fear, he began singing in his own sweet voice. Then he danced, joked, and entertained the crowd with his natural charm. Within moments, the angry audience burst into laughter. They clapped loudly and cheered for the brave little performer standing before them. That night changed Charlie's life forever. For the very first time, he experienced the magical feeling of making people happy. Deep inside his heart, he discovered his true purpose. He realized that making people laugh was not just something he enjoyed, it was the reason he had been born. Sadly, life became even more difficult. After years of stress, poverty, and endless struggles, Charlie's mother developed serious mental health problems. Her condition became so severe that she was admitted to a mental hospital. Charlie and Sidney suddenly found themselves completely alone. No parents, no stable home, no money, no one to protect them. The two young boys wandered through London's cold streets, struggling every single day to survive. Imagine a small child searching through garbage for something to eat, sleeping without knowing where tomorrow's meal would come from, and facing a future filled with uncertainty. That child was Charlie Chaplin. But here's the most important lesson. Did he surrender? Never. Did he lose faith in his dreams? Absolutely not. Instead of allowing hardship to defeat him, Charlie chose to believe that one day his life would change. And my friends, This was only the beginning of one of the greatest success stories the world has ever witnessed. Charlie Chaplin's journey begins. Charlie Chaplin was now completely alone. He was still just a young boy, yet life had already tested him more than most people experience in a lifetime. With no stable home, no loving parents beside him, and almost no money, Charlie and his older brother Sidney were forced to depend on workhouses for survival. These government institutions were meant to help the poor, but in reality they were cold, strict, and heartbreaking places. People worked long hours simply to receive a little food and a place to sleep. Charlie was only 7 years old when he entered one of these workhouses. Imagine a child who should have been playing with friends instead spending his days surrounded by hunger, loneliness, and hardship. Even worse, Charlie was separated from his brother Sidney. For a young child, that loneliness was almost impossible to bear. When he finally returned to see his mother, things had become even more painful. Her mental health had continued to decline. Some days she couldn't recognize her own children. Charlie watched helplessly as doctors took her back to the mental hospital. He cried, begged, and wished someone would stop them. But nothing changed. Once again, he found himself standing alone. Most people would have accepted defeat, but Charlie was different. Deep inside his heart burned a dream that refused to die. He remembered the magical feeling of standing on a stage years earlier. He remembered the audience laughing because of him. That single memory became the light guiding him through the darkest days of his life. Charlie made a promise to himself. One day, he would become a performer. One day, he would make people smile. One day, his life would be completely different. Of course, dreams alone couldn't fill an empty stomach. To survive, Charlie accepted every small job he could find. He washed dishes, delivered newspapers, cleaned workshops, carried heavy items, and even worked making simple toys. None of these jobs paid much, but every penny mattered. Still, no matter what he was doing, his heart remained connected to the stage. Whenever he had free time, he watched actors, comedians, and street performers. He carefully studied how they moved, how they used their expressions, and how they made crowds laugh without saying very much. He wasn't simply watching, he was learning. Every performance became another lesson. Every smile from the audience became another source of inspiration. Then one day, opportunity finally knocked. Charlie saw a group of street entertainers performing for crowds in London. Their comedy, dancing, and music attracted dozens of people. Something inside him whispered, "This is where I belong." Without hesitation, he joined them. At first, almost nobody noticed him. People walked past without stopping. Some ignored him completely. Others laughed at him instead of laughing with him. But Charlie refused to quit. Day after day, he continued performing. He improved his timing. He perfected his movements. He practiced every expression in front of mirrors whenever he found one. Slowly, something amazing began to happen. People started stopping. Crowds became larger. Children laughed. Adults smiled. For the first time in many years, Charlie realized he possessed a rare gift. He could make strangers forget their worries, even if only for a few minutes. That gift would soon change his life forever. When Charlie turned 14, another important opportunity arrived. He was accepted into a young dance troupe known as the 8 Lancashire Lads. It wasn't a leading role. He wasn't the star, but he finally had the chance to perform on real stages before paying audiences. For Charlie, that was more valuable than money. He worked harder than anyone else. He arrived early. He stayed late. He memorized every movement, every routine, and every performance until they became perfect. The directors quickly noticed his dedication. Unlike many young performers, Charlie wasn't satisfied with being average. He wanted excellence. His passion, discipline, and natural talent separated him from everyone around him. Soon, theater producers began giving him larger roles. His confidence continued to grow. By the age of 16, Charlie achieved another important milestone. He earned a role in the stage production of Sherlock Holmes. This was no longer street entertainment. He was now performing in respected theaters before large audiences. People admired his remarkable facial expressions, his unique body language, and his incredible ability to tell stories without speaking many words. Every performance made him stronger. Every applause pushed him one step closer to his dream. Then destiny opened an even bigger door. A famous comedy producer recognized Charlie's extraordinary talent. He believed the young performer had something truly special. Charlie was invited to join Fred Karno's famous comedy company, one of the most respected theatrical groups of its time. For Charlie, this opportunity felt almost unbelievable. It wasn't simply another acting job. It was the chance that could completely transform his future. And without realizing it, the poor homeless boy from London's streets was about to begin the journey that would eventually make him the biggest movie star on earth. The greatest chapter of Charlie Chaplin's life was just about to begin. The birth of a global superstar joining Fred Karno's comedy company became the biggest turning point of Charlie Chaplin's young career. The company was famous throughout Britain for producing talented comedians, and Charlie knew this was the opportunity he had been waiting for all his life. He worked with complete dedication, practicing every performance until every movement looked effortless. Soon, audiences couldn't take their eyes off him. His comic timing was exceptional. His facial expressions spoke louder than words. His body language alone could make an entire theater burst into laughter. Charlie wasn't simply performing comedy, he was creating a completely new style of entertainment. The more he performed, the more people recognized his incredible talent. Then, in 1910, destiny opened another life-changing door. Fred Karno selected Charlie to tour the United States with the company. For a young man who had once searched London's streets for food, traveling across the Atlantic felt almost impossible to believe. America was the land where dreams came true. As Charlie stepped onto the ship, he carried only a few belongings. But inside his heart, he carried something far more valuable, a dream that refused to die. When he finally arrived in America, everything amazed him. The cities were larger, the crowds were bigger, the theaters were grander. Everywhere he looked, new opportunities seemed to exist. Charlie immediately felt that this country could change his future forever. During his performances across America, one thing became clear. Audiences loved him. Night after night, people laughed harder at Charlie than at anyone else on stage. His natural ability to entertain impressed everyone who watched him. Among those impressed were people from the growing film industry. At that time, silent movies were becoming more popular every year, and producers were constantly searching for fresh talent. Charlie was exactly what they had been looking for. In 1913, a movie producer from Keystone Studios noticed his performances and offered him a chance to appear in silent films. Although it was only a small opportunity, Charlie recognized its true value. He knew this single decision could completely transform his life. He accepted the offer without hesitation. His first few films were successful, but Charlie wasn't satisfied. He wanted audiences to remember him forever. He wanted to create a character unlike anyone the world had ever seen. So he began experimenting. He mixed together oversized trousers, a tight little coat, enormous shoes, a small bowler hat, a tiny toothbrush mustache, and a thin walking cane. Finally, he added one last unforgettable detail: a funny little walk that looked awkward, confident, and charming all at the same time. Just like that, the Tramp was born. At first, nobody expected this unusual character to become famous. Even Charlie himself couldn't imagine what was about to happen. The moment audiences saw the Tramp appear on screen, something magical happened. People laughed from beginning to end. Children loved him. Adults admired him. Families returned to theaters again and again, just to watch his performances. Without speaking a single word, Charlie could make millions of people understand every emotion: happiness, sadness, love, loneliness, hope. He proved that true storytelling didn't always need dialogue. His expressions alone could tell an unforgettable story. Movie after movie became a massive success. Studios rushed to sign him. Producers offered him larger salaries. Directors wanted him in every new project. Within only a few years, the poor boy who once wandered London streets had become one of the most recognizable faces in the world. By 1917, Charlie Chaplin was no longer just another actor. He had become an international sensation. Long lines formed outside movie theaters whenever one of his films was released. His photographs appeared in newspapers, magazines, advertisements, and posters across the globe. People from different countries spoke different languages, but they all understood Charlie's comedy. His laughter crossed every border. His stories united millions of people. Yet despite all the fame, Charlie never forgot where he had come from. Deep inside, he was still the little boy who had gone to sleep hungry. He still remembered watching his mother struggle. He still remembered the loneliness of the workhouse. Those painful memories kept him humble and motivated him to work even harder. Success never made him arrogant. Instead, it reminded him why he had started this journey in the first place. Charlie believed he could achieve something even greater. He no longer wanted to simply act in movies. He wanted complete creative freedom. He wanted to write his own stories, direct his own scenes, control every emotion, choose every piece of music, design every detail exactly as he imagined it. Hollywood's biggest studios didn't like that idea. During those years, actors followed orders. Studios made every important decision. But Charlie refused to let anyone control his creativity. He believed great art could only be created through complete freedom. So he made one of the boldest decisions of his career. Instead of depending on powerful studios, he decided to build something of his own. A decision that would soon change Hollywood forever. Charlie Chaplin builds his legacy. Charlie Chaplin had already become one of the biggest stars in the world. Millions of people filled movie theaters just to watch his films. Every new release became a major event, and his popularity continued to grow beyond anyone's imagination. But Charlie wasn't satisfied with simply being a famous actor. He dreamed of something much bigger. He wanted complete control over his work. He wanted to write stories that came from his own heart, direct every scene himself, choose the music, and create films exactly the way he imagined them. During that era, Hollywood studios controlled almost everything. Actors had very little freedom. Producers decided what stories would be told, how actors should perform, and even what kind of characters they would play. Charlie believed true creativity could never survive under someone else's control. So he made a bold decision that shocked the entire film industry. In 1918, he established his own production studio. Now he was no longer working for others. He became his own producer, director, writer, editor, and leading actor. Many people thought he was taking a huge risk, but Charlie believed that great success always begins with great courage. And once again, he proved everyone wrong. With complete creative freedom, Charlie started making films that combined comedy with deep human emotions. His stories were no longer just funny. They touched people's hearts. In 1921, he released one of his greatest masterpieces, The Kid. The film told the emotional story of a poor man who cared for an abandoned little boy. Although audiences laughed throughout the movie, they also cried during its emotional moments. The story reflected many of Charlie's own childhood experiences: poverty, loneliness, love, and hope. People around the world connected with the film. Critics praised it, audiences adored it, and Charlie realized something very important. Movies could do much more than entertain people. They could inspire them. They could comfort broken hearts. They could make the world a kinder place. From that moment onward, Charlie focused on creating meaningful films that would remain unforgettable for generations. Each new project became even more successful than the last. His perfectionism became legendary. Charlie sometimes spent months repeating the same scene until every movement looked exactly right. If one small detail didn't satisfy him, he would film it again, and again, and again. Some people thought he demanded too much, but Charlie believed that greatness lives inside the smallest details. His dedication rewarded him with extraordinary success. While many actors earned only modest salaries, Charlie became one of the highest-paid entertainers in the entire world. His films generated enormous profits, yet fame never erased the memories of his difficult childhood. He still remembered the hungry little boy he had once been. He still remembered his mother's suffering. Those memories kept him humble and reminded him to work harder every single day. Then Hollywood entered a completely new era. By the late 1920s, silent films were rapidly disappearing. A revolutionary invention had arrived. Movies could now include spoken dialogue. Almost every filmmaker immediately switched to talking pictures. Experts believed silent cinema was finished forever. They advised Charlie to abandon the style that had made him famous, but Charlie refused. He believed emotions were stronger than words. He trusted visual storytelling more than spoken dialogue. Many people predicted his career would end if he continued making silent films. Instead of listening to criticism, Charlie followed his instincts. In 1931, he released City Lights. The film contained almost no spoken dialogue, yet audiences around the world were deeply moved by its powerful story. People laughed, people cried, and the unforgettable final scene became one of the greatest moments in cinema history. Once again, Charlie proved that true emotions need no translation. A sincere smile, a broken heart, a look of hope. These things could be understood in every country and every language. His success silenced every critic. Charlie Chaplin had once again shown the world that believing in yourself is often more powerful than following popular opinion. The poor child who had once dreamed behind a theater curtain had now become one of the greatest filmmakers the world had ever known. But the biggest challenges of his extraordinary life were still waiting ahead. Charlie Chaplin faces his greatest challenges. By the late 1930s, the world was changing rapidly. Dark clouds of war were spreading across Europe. Fear was replacing hope, and millions of innocent people were living under the growing threat of dictatorship. One man stood at the center of this darkness. His name was Adolf Hitler. As Charlie watched world events unfold, he noticed something unusual. Hitler's small mustache looked almost identical to the one worn by his famous tramp character. People everywhere began comparing the two men, even though their personalities could not have been more different. One used laughter to unite people, the other used hatred to divide them. Charlie believed that silence was no longer an option. He knew that comedy could be more powerful than fear, so he made one of the boldest decisions of his career. In 1940, Charlie released The Great Dictator. This was his first full talking film, and it carried a message far greater than entertainment. Through humor, he exposed the dangers of tyranny, racism, and blind hatred. Making the film was extremely risky. Many people warned Charlie not to challenge Hitler. Some feared the movie would destroy his career. Others believed it would create dangerous political enemies, but Charlie refused to back down. He believed that artists had a responsibility to stand for humanity whenever injustice threatened the world. The film became a historic success. Audiences laughed at its clever satire, but they also understood its deeper message. Then came the unforgettable final scene. Instead of delivering another joke, Charlie looked directly toward the audience and gave one of the most inspiring speeches ever recorded in cinema. He spoke about kindness instead of cruelty, freedom instead of oppression, hope instead of fear. He reminded humanity that machines could never replace compassion and that people should never lose their ability to care for one another. The speech touched millions of hearts around the world. Even today, decades later, it continues to inspire people from every generation. But not everyone appreciated Charlie's courage. As his influence grew, powerful voices began turning against him. Some people criticized his political opinions. Others accused him of beliefs and actions without clear evidence. Newspapers published negative stories. Rumors spread quickly. The man who had once been celebrated across America suddenly found himself surrounded by controversy. Charlie continued making films, but the pressure kept increasing. Eventually, in 1952, while he was traveling overseas for the premiere of one of his movies, the United States government revoked his permission to return. After spending decades building his career in America, Charlie was suddenly forced to live somewhere else. It was one of the most painful moments of his life. Heartbroken but determined, he chose to settle in the peaceful countryside of Switzerland with his family. Although he left Hollywood behind, he never allowed bitterness to control his heart. Instead, he focused on enjoying a quieter life. He spent time writing, reading books, composing music, walking through beautiful gardens. Most importantly, he devoted himself to the people he loved. His wife, Una O'Neill, remained beside him through every challenge. Together they built a warm and loving home, raising their children far from the pressures of Hollywood. For Charlie, family became more valuable than fame. Years passed quietly, but the world never forgot him. His movies continued entertaining millions. New generations discovered his unforgettable performances. Filmmakers around the globe proudly admitted that Charlie Chaplin had inspired their own careers. Then, after nearly 20 years away from Hollywood, something remarkable happened. In 1972, the film industry finally recognized the mistake it had made. Charlie was invited back to America to receive an honorary Academy Award for his extraordinary contribution to cinema. When he entered the theater, something unforgettable happened. The audience rose to their feet. The applause continued. 1 minute passed, then another. The standing ovation lasted for nearly 12 minutes, becoming one of the longest and most emotional moments in Oscar history. Many people in the audience were crying. Charlie himself struggled to hold back his tears. After years of criticism, rejection, and exile, the world finally welcomed him home with the respect he had always deserved. It was a victory far greater than any award. It was proof that true greatness can never be erased. Charlie Chaplin had once been a homeless child with nothing except a dream. Now he stood before the world's greatest artists as one of the most respected legends in cinema history. But even after this unforgettable honor, one final and shocking chapter of his incredible story was still waiting to unfold. Charlie Chaplin's final chapter and everlasting legacy. Although Charlie Chaplin had returned to the spotlight with honor and respect, he had already decided that the busiest days of his career were behind him. After receiving the unforgettable standing ovation at the Academy Awards, Charlie returned to his peaceful home in Switzerland, where he chose to spend the rest of his life surrounded by the people he loved most. Far away from the noise of Hollywood, he finally found the peace he had searched for since childhood. His days became simple but meaningful. He enjoyed reading books. He wrote stories and music. He spent long hours walking through his beautiful gardens. Most of all, he treasured every moment with his wife, Una O'Neill, and their 8 children. For the first time in his life, Charlie experienced something he had missed as a child: a warm and loving family. The little boy who had once slept hungry on the streets of London now watched his children grow up in safety and happiness. Despite living far from Hollywood, Charlie's influence continued to grow. His classic films were watched in every corner of the world. Young actors studied his performances. Directors admired his creativity. Millions of people continued laughing at the same scenes that had entertained audiences decades earlier. Charlie had achieved something very few artists ever accomplish. His work had become timeless. Then, on the morning of December 25th, 1977, heartbreaking news spread around the world. Charlie Chaplin had passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 88. It was Christmas Day. The world fell silent. The man who had spent an entire lifetime making billions of people laugh had taken his final bow. Tributes poured in from every continent. Newspapers called him the greatest comedian in history. Actors, filmmakers, politicians, and ordinary people all honored the man whose films had brought joy to generations. Although Charlie was gone, his legacy seemed untouchable. But just when the world believed his remarkable story had reached its end, something unbelievable happened. Only a few months after his funeral, criminals broke into the cemetery where Charlie had been buried. Late at night, they dug up his grave. Then they stole his coffin. Yes, the body of one of the world's greatest entertainers had been kidnapped. The shocking crime made international headlines almost immediately. People around the world could hardly believe what they were hearing. The thieves contacted Charlie's family and demanded a huge ransom in exchange for returning his body. They hoped fear would force the family to pay. But Charlie's wife, Una, remained calm. She refused every demand. She reportedly said that Charlie himself would probably have laughed at such a ridiculous situation. A massive police investigation soon began. For weeks, officers searched for the missing coffin while newspapers closely followed every development. Finally, the criminals were arrested. They were two men who admitted they had committed the crime, hoping to escape financial hardship through blackmail. Charlie's coffin was safely recovered and returned to his family. This time, his grave was reinforced with heavy concrete to ensure that no one could ever disturb his resting place again. Even after death, Charlie Chaplin's life remained extraordinary. His final chapter was just as unforgettable as the incredible journey that came before it. Today, Charlie Chaplin is remembered for much more than his comedy. He taught the world that laughter has the power to heal broken hearts. He proved that kindness is stronger than hatred. He showed us that success is not determined by where we begin, but by how bravely we continue moving forward. From a homeless child with empty pockets to the most recognizable face in cinema, his journey remains one of the greatest examples of determination in history. Every time someone watches one of his films, every time a child laughs at the funny little man with the cane and bowler hat, every time a dreamer refuses to give up after failure, Charlie Chaplin's spirit lives on. His story reminds us that difficult beginnings never decide our future. Dream boldly, work tirelessly, believe in yourself even when no one else does. Because one day, your struggles may become the story that inspires millions. Charlie Chaplin's life may have come to an end, but his legacy will never fade. As he once said, "A day without laughter is a day wasted." Thank you for watching. If this incredible story inspired you, don't forget to share it with your friends and family, because the lessons of Charlie Chaplin deserve to be remembered for generations to come. Until next time, keep learning, keep smiling, and never stop believing in your dreams.